Last Diddy recording played in trial.
Diddy's countenance transformed as soon as Prince's voice entered the courtroom. His composed manner faltered when the room reverberated with the iconic artist's last recording, an apparition testifying from the afterlife. What was it about this track that caused one of the most influential people in music to lose his cool? Hollywood is reeling from the implications of the shocking evidence that was just revealed on the third day of this blockbuster trial.
He would get physical. That one male guy who did things with Diddy and Cassie said he witnessed him get physical. Don. So again, we talked about how the domestic charges aren't, what he's being, what he's on trial for. But boy, it's stacking up. And I feel that the jury is going to take that into consideration.
The first Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in.
The third day began similarly to the first two. Reporters scrambled for the finest seats. While legal teams meticulously organized their documents and celebrities entered through side doors, something felt off this morning. The courtroom was electrifying, not just packed. Security personnel stood in every available space. This is typical for a high-profile case, isn't it? However, they doubled the typical number today. 4 officers, who hadn't done so in the past, moved to stand, right behind Diddy's table. They had special instructions that morning, according to a court insider, but no one gave an explanation for why Diddy entered the room without seeming to be perturbed. He nodded to fans in the gallery while sporting a well-tailored blue suit, and even flashed that recognizable smile. His legal staff was all about him, whispering strategies and acting as a shield. He appeared to be a man who believed he had everything under control as they got comfortable. He was unaware of the peculiar Prince's recording activities at the prosecution table are disclosed by the prosecution. Silently, 2 tech experts installed equipment that wasn't there for the first 2 days. The main prosecutor, who kept looking at Diddy with what can only be characterized as anticipation that something was coming, and that only the prosecution knew what it was whispered to, and connections were checked. There were rumors all over the place. People were texting each other from across the room wondering what bomb the prosecution was about to drop. We all felt it coming, a courtroom reporter later told me. I want to remind everyone present that regardless of what evidence is presented today, I expect complete composure in my courtroom, the judge said, pausing after the customary niceties. After a moment of staring at the gallery, he said, "Any disruptions will result in immediate removal." That morning's opening comments from the prosecution adopted the same systematic strategy as before. They went over the previous day's testimony, making connections between the evidence and the witnesses. Before the main prosecutor abruptly halted in the middle of his sentence, it nearly appeared normal. The prosecution would now like, Your Honor, to introduce important audio evidence that our forensic experts have just verified. She carried a tiny black gadget as she walked up to the bench. The defense raised an objection right away, arguing that they had not been adequately informed of this material. Following a contentious sidebar during which Diddy's lawyers made forceful gestures, the judge finally decided in favor of the prosecution. During discovery, the evidence was appropriately revealed. He declared that the prosecution could move forward. That's when it took place. The words that altered everything were spoken by the prosecutor as she turned to face the courtroom. The last private tape Prince Rogers Nelson made before passing away is what you are going to hear. The space froze. Reporters ceased typing. A collective exhale reverberated throughout the room. The legendary musician Prince was set to deliver a message from beyond the dead. The lead lawyer for Diddy took hold of his client's arm. Diddy's face lost color so fast that you could practically see it happen in real time. As the prosecution hooked up their device to the courtroom audio system, his whole legal team came closer, loudly whispering. Before a single note was played, the room's power changed, and Diddy's legal team realized that something terrible was about to happen. Additionally, based on the abrupt fright in Diddy's eyes, he
trying to listen. I mean, it's a lot of this stuff that I've heard and seen already. I'm really trying to connect the dots here and think like, damn, what if Prince was like, what if he caught wind of some, I'll just say allegedly, stuff that Diddy might have been doing that seems to be like, I ain't talking about consensual things, I'm talking about illegal things or whatever. But I'm just like, would Diddy be that dumb to like not think that Prince, this celebrity, has cameras in his house as well? So I'm just trying to think, like, because if Prince has cameras and he's recording stuff, you know, to get some dirt on Diddy, I don't know. I feel like Diddy, with all his cameras that he allegedly had, or no, they actually found cameras.
Problems?
That I don't know, right? What I know is that he was really health conscious. He was a vegan. He didn't abuse alcohol. I didn't know of him abusing drugs. He worked out, so, that also really concerned me, because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself and you die so young?
The prosecution said that what you're about to hear was found in Prince's secret vault. There were whispers throughout the courtroom. People's seats were leaned forward. Reporters tapped frantically on their phones. This wasn't merely any proof. Prince was communicating from beyond the grave in this instance. The recording was made just weeks before Prince passed away in 2016, the prosecutor explained, and it was never intended for public consumption. Prince made this as insurance, recording what he saw firsthand, she claimed. A woman in the third row actually covered her mouth and sobbed when Prince's voice began to play through the speakers. It wasn't simply the shock of hearing him, it was also the tone of his voice. Prince sounded anxious. His confident, theatrical demeanor was entirely different from his quiet, almost hidden voice. "I'm filming this because I'm not sure who I can trust anymore," Prince started. The quality was blatantly obvious. He could be heard inhaling deeply in between statements. He wasn't performing or singing. This was Prince's most intimate, unprotected moment. The courtroom's entire atmosphere was altered by what followed. Prince began mentioning names, dates, and places, with Diddy at the center of it all. Prince talked of gatherings at Diddy's houses in Miami's Hamptons. As the tape played, I observed Diddy's face, the same parties that 3 other witnesses had already testified about. His confident grin vanished in a matter of seconds. His eyes grew wide. Diddy was held in place, staring straight ahead while his lawyer tried to whisper something to him. As the recording went on, Prince's voice became more agitated. "What happens at these parties isn't just wrong, it's criminal," he stated. "I've observed how they function, who is involved, and who suffers harm." Diddy seemed to be struck physically by every phrase. It is impossible to overestimate the impact of this recording. Prince was offering insider confirmation that no one could contest, not just reiterating what the prosecution said. A dead guy cannot be cross-examined. He cannot be coerced into altering his account. 2 celebrities who had previously denied ever attending Diddy's secret parties were among the guests. Prince cited when he recounted a particular party in December 2015. Prince described information that matched precisely what the prosecution had described in their opening statements, mentioning witnessing the typical arrangement in the private rooms above. Prince's speech was the only sound in the courtroom. The judge was even leaning forward and paying close attention. I was later informed by court reporters that they had never experienced anything like it. The combined shock was nearly tangible. I attempted to discuss it with him. On the recording, Prince stated, "I told him this had to stop. I should mind my own business if I wanted to keep working in this industry," he remarked, laughing. The prosecutor paused the tape at that precise moment. The timing was flawless, almost dramatic. Everyone in the courtroom turned to stare at Diddy. His calm exterior had totally fallen apart. He had a pale face. His hands, which had remained motionless on the table during the trial, were now clearly trembling. It was too late when his lead lawyer put a yellow legal paper in front of him, ostensibly to hide the jury's view of his response. Everyone had witnessed it. As soon as Prince's voice recognized him, Diddy's meticulously erected wall of confidence came crashing down.
such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. But it's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they ship.
Cassie Ventura on the witness stand for a fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continuing cross-examination this morning, confronting her with dozens of her own messages, many explicit, hoping to convince the jury she was an eager sexual partner who matched Combs's desires. I'm always ready to freak off, one message said.
She was into the freak-offs herself and was like a willing participant and was into all the freaky stuff, and essentially that was the crux of what they were trying to do yesterday.
And do you think they proved that or not?
I mean, there's texts like that from 2009. I'm always ready to freak off. There was some other texts where she was referencing like hitting him up about the FOs, is what they were referring to him. To me, like, yes, this doesn't look good, but at the same time, I think the timeline is crucial here. And these are texts from 2009, man. That was when they were first getting in the relationship. She was young. Obviously, they were in the honeymoon stage, and she was stoked to like, oh my God, I'm with Diddy. I'm living this lavish lifestyle. Of course, she's going to be saying things that she knows will curry favor with him to keep it going.
Not only did Prince's remarks astound everyone, but we also witnessed Diddy's entire collapse in front of our very eyes. For 2 continuous days, he had been the epitome of composure. He stayed unmoving while the accusations pointed fingers at him. He quietly whispered to his lawyers as the devastating images came on screen. His meticulously constructed persona never cracked, but Prince's voice altered everything. Following that little pause, Did's metamorphosis was startling as the recording went on. As a common tactic to help clients stay composed, his lawyer, the same accomplished attorney who has represented innumerable celebrities, put a touch on Diddy's forearm. Water leaked from a glass on the defensive table as Diddy angrily yanked his arm away. A number of jurors responded visibly, looking at one another. In real time, the guy who had built an empire on his calm, collected demeanor was falling apart. During evidence, Diddy's breathing became heavy and irregular, making it so evident that those in the back row could see his shoulders rising and falling quickly. Later, a courtroom sketch artist told reporters that she had never witnessed someone's physical demeanor shift so drastically. He looked around the room as if he was looking for ways out. The judge kept his gaze fixed on Diddy. Being a seasoned judge who has heard numerous high-profile cases, he was able to identify the telltale signals of someone who was ready to lose control. Diddy squirmed in his chair several times before reaching up and shakily removing his tie. 3 of his lawyers huddled closer as he bent over to them and said something urgently. Prince's voice went on to describe an exclusive Beverly Hills party. He brought up a certain date, March 9th, 2016, and an address that had already been recorded by prosecutors in prior evidence. Diddy got to his feet as soon as Prince finished speaking, not deliberately or slowly, but quickly, as if someone had yanked him up by unseen threads. Immediately, 4 security guards approached the defense table. Diddy's legal team attempted to yank him back into his seat by grabbing at his suit jacket. Their face was filled with genuine terror, while one lawyer tried to stand between Diddy and the jury box. Another furiously whispered in his ear. As the tape continued to play, Prince talked about entering a room and seeing conduct that was precisely in line with the accusations made against Diddy by the prosecution. His attorneys appeared to be in a desperate attempt to comfort their client, literally clambering over one another. Then it took place. Diddy lost all self-control. He yelled, "That's a lie!" his voice resonating throughout the astonished courtroom. A reporter in the front seat clearly jumped when the explosion became so abrupt and loud. He wasn't even present. That didn't occur. Immediately after issuing his gavel order, the judge glared at Diddy and said, "Mr. Combs, control yourself, or I will hold you in contempt." With the exception of Prince's voice continuing to play through the speakers, the courtroom became quiet. In that instant, the prosecution's plan became glaringly apparent. They waited until day 3, when Diddy's guard might be lowered, to play the one piece of evidence that would shatter his painstakingly crafted facade. They purposefully kept this video hidden until he had been comfortable with a false feeling of security, and it worked flawlessly.
The things that the Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show, this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was, hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So...
she is out of the freak-offs then. She is... when she's with Kid Cudi, or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan, she's kind of out of the freak-offs if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back? Yeah. I know it's kind of like a mental, she still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh, yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that, that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that, Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So, this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown's...
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere, dude.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right. Final story of the week. Final story of the week.
Wow.
Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those, rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around. Was there minors involved? Says, if no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding, though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun, one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why, all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward and been I didn't see any of this freak-off.
The prosecution started playing Prince's recording again once the court re-established order. Everyone in that courtroom was surprised by what happened next. Prince had not only leveled nebulous charges, he had outlined 3 particular accusations that went directly to the core of the Diddy case. Prince disclosed that he has been covertly recording troubling conduct in the music business for years. I heard his voice explain everything: dates, times, attendees, and events. This is what I've been doing since 2007. The room's legal experts looked at each other. These weren't only arbitrary findings. This was methodical documentation from one of the most careful minds in music. Prince's description of parties he visited at Diddy's houses was the first bombshell. These aren't just parties, Prince's voice clarified. They're calculated events. He put young artists in positions they couldn't refuse, separated them from their teams, and left them alone. I saw this firsthand. Prince mentioned a room arrangement that matched floor plans that had already been proven for a particular Beverly Hills mansion. There was total silence in the courtroom as Prince went on. He was really concerned about the manipulation of young artists at these industry events. They arrive believing that this is their big break. Prince claimed that by the time they comprehend the true situation, they are already stuck. I have personally witnessed this happen to at least 7 musicians. The second accusation centered on Prince and Diddy having a direct altercation. I told him I knew what was happening and it needed to stop, Prince recalled when I approached him at the 2016 Grammy after-party. He laughed in my face and said, "You might be Prince, but you're not untouchable." I took that as a threat. Diddy's lawyers scrawled notes frantically when the bombshell came, obviously caught off guard. Prince's disclosure of Diddy's financial dealings with a number of people who were reportedly compensated for their quiet was possibly the most devastating. Prince specified precise amounts. To one individual, $2 million, $1.3 million to another, which matched financial records exactly. Earlier in the trial, the prosecution had made its case. I've seen the NDAs they signed and the cash prints mentioned, so this isn't simply wealthy people acting badly. It is methodical and deliberate. Prince appeared to have access to information that only an industry insider could know, based on the accuracy of his expertise. Prince's voice became increasingly solemn as the recording went on. I'm recording this since I'm hesitant to talk in public. People like him are protected by the industry's power structure. Nobody is interested in what goes on behind closed doors. The last statements on the tape sent shivers through the courtroom. Make sure this reaches the appropriate individuals in case I die. This is about safeguarding everyone who hasn't been able to speak up, not just about protecting myself. The courtroom was motionless when Prince's voice eventually stopped. No, one whispered or moved. The prosecution has just achieved a remarkable feat. From beyond the grave, they had transformed Prince into their star witness. No further questions, Your Honor, the main prosecutor replied simply as he arose. There was nothing else she needed to say. What no live witness could do, Prince had done. Speak up without worrying about the repercussions of disclosing long-kept secrets.
Have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in. They're very alert. And I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, 2 of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, you know, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, you know, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. Seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3.
Diddy's tirade changed the entire trial in just 7 seconds. Prince's legal team went into crisis mode as soon as his recording ended. His main lawyer got to his feet right away, speaking to the judge in a voice that was nearly trembling. We respectfully ask for a 15-minute break to speak with our customer. Everyone seeing could see the desperation, and the judge didn't even hesitate. Denied request. The court will proceed with the evidence presentation. He gave Diddy a harsh look, saying, I expect no further disruptions. Diddy's lawyers appeared, astonished. These attorneys, who charge $1,500 per hour and usually obtain what they ask for in court, weren't used to being turned down, but today nothing was going their way. The prosecution team, meanwhile, was unable to conceal their joy. The lead prosecutor kept a composed face, but when Diddy yelled, her second chair actually grinned a little. Their brief glances told it all. Their ruse had been a complete success. They had anticipated and desired this response, and it is now officially documented in court. 2 rows behind me, a legal analyst said to his colleague, "This is disastrous for the defense. They have portrayed him as serene and naive for the past 2 days." That picture simply fell apart in front of the jurors. The judge spoke straight to the jurors. "In your considerations, you should ignore the outburst you just observed." Court security didn't take any chances following Diddy's explosion, since 3 jurors were looking straight at Diddy, observing his every move. Emotional responses are not evidence, but every trial lawyer is aware that once jurors see something, they can't unsee it. 2 more officers moved to stand a few feet away from the defense table. One officer was positioned right behind Diddy's chair, within easy reach of him in an emergency. Diddy had a difficult rest of the day. The prosecution persisted in offering proof that Prince's recording was directly related to financial data that matched the precise payments Prince had indicated were displayed. They showed witness text messages that recounted the exact incidents Prince had described. Sweating through his fancy outfit, Diddy sat there. He refused water when an aide offered it because his hands were shaking so much that his lawyer handed him a legal paper, presumably so he would have something to hold. His appearance was physically sick by mid-afternoon. His face had changed from one of confidence to one of corneredness. Diddy's legal team submitted an emergency petition to remove Prince's audio from the evidence, arguing that it was perhaps edited and hard to authenticate given the witness's death. This was the last straw, and the court adjourned for the day. The room's legal experts saw right away that this was a last-ditch effort to reverse what was irreversible. This motion's timing demonstrated how genuinely terrified his defense unit had grown. Usually, attorneys only submit emergency motions when they are left with no other choice. Even before everyone left the courtroom, legal analysts were already making audacious forecasts. One well-known TV legal expert informed his producer, "This will be the point of reference when talking about how the case was lost." In a single day, Diddy went from looking like a man fighting false accusations to someone who lost control when confronted with the truth. A seasoned court reporter provided the ideal summary. "I've covered hundreds of celebrity trials, and I've never seen someone's case collapse so completely in a single moment. It wasn't just good fortune that Prince's track got played on day 3. All of this was a component of a brilliant scheme the prosecution had been developing for months." According to court insiders, the prosecution team had this bombshell prepared from the outset, but purposefully withheld it until Diddy became at ease in the courtroom. They wanted him to calm down before dropping it. The first 2 days, according to a source close to the prosecution team, were devoted to giving him a false sense of security. This explains why the prosecution's case appeared to be rather conventional in the early going. The team spent over 4 months verifying Prince's recording, but they weren't yet displaying their full capabilities. They knew the defense would contest its validity right away, so they brought in 3 different audio forensic specialists to make sure it hadn't been changed or modified in any way. Thus, they created a robust verification procedure that could withstand any examination. What's especially calculated is how they looked at Diddy's prior court appearances. After reviewing video from his prior court appearances, the prosecution team identified a trend. They essentially timed their bombshell to the exact psychological moment when Diddy would be most vulnerable. Normally, Diddy maintained immaculate control during the first 48 hours of proceedings, but as the trials went on, he grew increasingly less guarded. The prosecution used architects to construct their case. They began by setting up witnesses who could confirm dates, locations, and fundamental information. Next, they included text messages and financial records as structural components. Everything was planned so that when Prince's voice eventually came, every detail he spoke about would relate to proof the jury had already seen and approved. Additionally, the prosecution team did not improvise its presentation. A courthouse employee disclosed that they practiced playing the footage several times. They rehearsed their poker faces for when Diddy's inevitable reaction occurred as well, as the precise moment to halt it and glance at him. The way they have made Prince the ideal witness is what makes this tactic so disastrous. He cannot be coerced or subjected to cross-examination. His intentions are unquestionable. No live witness could match Prince's believability while speaking from beyond. The timing of this disclosure for day 3 was the prosecution's brilliant move. When high-profile cases start to garner public attention, cable news usually covers the opening speeches in great detail before stepping back until the closing arguments. They ensured a renewed media frenzy precisely when public interest may have begun to wane by releasing their greatest bomb on day 3. A seasoned legal expert clarified that this was about managing the public discourse as well as persuading the jury. They simply made sure that this case would make headlines once more. The two legal teams' differences couldn't have been more pronounced as the court adjourned. The prosecution collected its evidence in a composed manner, occasionally exchanging contented looks. Didd's crew, meanwhile, was huddled in apparent panic, with some rapidly flipping through legal texts and others making urgent phone calls. Within minutes, the balance of power had drastically changed. Diddy was a formidable music businessman at one point, battling accusations. The next, he was a desperate guy who was witnessing his meticulously crafted persona fall apart due to the testimony of a music icon who was able to communicate openly from beyond the grave. Something significant had changed in the courtroom as the third day of the trial came to an end. Prince's voice, which was distinct and unmistakable, had done what years of accusations had failed to do. It broke Diddy's meticulously preserved facade in front of everyone. The trial will resume tomorrow, but everyone is aware that nothing will be the same. Diddy was caught completely off guard as the spirit of a music legend gave the most impactful testimony imaginable. Industry insiders aren't just worried about Diddy's destiny tonight. What else could be kept in Prince's personal vault? Who else? Did he name? What further recordings are there that we haven't listened to?